This script discusses cybercrime and national security incidents. All claims are attributed to public reports and official statements. A 16-year-old sits in his bedroom, fingers dancing across a keyboard, headphones glowing in the dark. Visual: slow zoom on illuminated screen with code scrolling on the other side of his screen is the most secure military network on Earth, the Pentagon, and he's already inside. How does a high school kid break into the defense headquarters of the world's most powerful nation, steal classified data, and walk away without serving a single day in prison? Context in one breath. In the late 1990s, a British teenager named James Jonathan became one of the most wanted hackers in American history. He wasn't after money. He wasn't working for a foreign government. He was searching for proof of UFOs. Source: BBC, March 2002, Wired, June 2006. What he found instead were wide-open doors into 97 United States military and NASA computer systems, including networks that controlled weapons, ships, and classified personnel data. His intrusion triggered the largest military computer hack investigation the U.S. had ever seen. Source: U.S. Department of Justice Indictment, 2002. This story matters now because it exposed how vulnerable critical infrastructure was at the dawn of the Internet age, and how those vulnerabilities echo in today's cyber war landscape. Timeline of key events. James Jonathan, who went by the online handle Solo, was born in Glasgow and raised in North London. By age 14, he was already teaching himself to code and explore the early internet. Source: The Guardian, July 2008. He wasn't a genius coder. He used widely available hacking tools and exploited systems that had embarrassingly weak security. In February 2001, Jonathan began systematically scanning U.S. military networks for computers with default passwords or no passwords at all. Lower third. February 2001. Initial intrusions begin. He found them everywhere. He used a simple Perl script to search for machines running outdated software with known vulnerabilities. Source: U.S. Federal Court Documents, 2002. Over 13 months, Jonathan accessed Army, Navy, Air Force, and Department of Defense systems from his girlfriend's aunt's house in London. Visual: map animation showing connection from London to U.S. military bases. He installed backdoors, deleted critical files, and copied data. On one occasion, he allegedly crashed the U.S. Army's military district of Washington network for 3 days, taking 2,000 computers offline just after the September 11 attacks. Source: Pentagon damage assessment cited in court filings, 2002. Question: if you could access any government file, would you? Jonathan later claimed he was looking for evidence of suppressed technology related to UFOs and free energy. He said he found spreadsheets of non-terrestrial officers and lists of ship-to-ship transfers with vessel names he couldn't identify in any naval registry. Source: Jonathan interviews with BBC, Project Camelot, 2006-2009. U.S. authorities said he was reckless, caused nearly $800,000 in damage, and compromised national security during wartime. Source: U.S. Indictment Summary, 2002. British police raided his home in March 2002, seizing his computer equipment. Visual: evidence card showing seized hardware dated March 2002. Jonathan was arrested and charged under the UK Computer Misuse Act. Within months, the United States filed an extradition request, seeking to try him on 7 counts of computer fraud and related crimes. Source: UK Home Office records. U.S. extradition request filed November 2002. For the next 10 years, Jonathan fought extradition through every level of the British legal system. His lawyers argued he had Asperger's syndrome and would face inhumane treatment in a U.S. prison, possibly even extradition to Guantanamo Bay, a claim U.S. prosecutors denied. Source: High Court of Justice rulings, 2006-2008. Medical assessments submitted to court. Medical experts testified that Jonathan was at serious risk of suicide if extradited. Source: Professor Simon Baron-Cohen Assessment, 2009. The case became a political lightning rod. Activists, musicians, and members of parliament campaigned for him. Lower third, 2009-2012. Public campaign intensifies. His supporters framed him as a naive, vulnerable young man being scapegoated by an empire. U.S. officials argued he was a criminal who endangered lives and deserved to face justice. In October 2012, British Home Secretary Theresa May blocked the extradition on human rights grounds, citing the medical evidence of suicide risk. Source: UK Home Office Statement, October 16, 2012. Jonathan would never stand trial in the United States. British prosecutors declined to charge him domestically, citing the amount of time that had passed and lack of public interest. Source: Crown Prosecution Service Statement, December 2012. He walked away. Evidence and verification. The U.S. government's case rested on server logs, forensic analysis, and damage assessments from multiple military installations. Document: Pentagon Network Intrusion Reports, 2001-2002. Investigators traced the intrusions to IP addresses in the UK, and British authorities confirmed the computers belonged to Jonathan. Source: Metropolitan Police Forensic Examination, 2002. Jonathan never denied accessing the systems. In multiple interviews, he openly described what he did, what he found, and what he was searching for. Footage: BBC Click Interview 2006, RT Interview 2012. He maintained he caused no intentional harm and only wanted to expose government secrecy about UFOs. INFOCRD: What we know versus unconfirmed. U.S. prosecutors presented evidence that Jonathan deleted logs, installed remote access tools, and copied sensitive data, including usernames and passwords of military personnel. Source: U.S. Attorney's Office for the Eastern District of Virginia. Indictment details. Some systems required costly repairs and security overhauls. One Navy official testified that a crashed system at the Naval Weapons Station Earl compromised the base's ability to manage Atlantic Fleet munitions. Source: Congressional testimony cited in court records, 2003. However, no evidence was presented that Jonathan sold data, shared it with hostile actors, or intentionally sabotaged operations. The non-terrestrial officer's spreadsheet he claimed to see was never independently verified, and skeptics suggested it was either a misinterpretation of routine paperwork or a fabrication. Source: Computer security analysts quoted in Wired, The Guardian, 2006-2008. Conflicting views and gaps. The U.S. government viewed Jonathan as a serious cybercriminal who exploited wartime chaos and jeopardized national security. Officials argued that his actions could have aided enemies and exposed personnel to risk. Source: Department of Defense Public Affairs Statements, 2002-2003. Jonathan's defense team and supporters portrayed him as a vulnerable individual with a mental health condition, motivated by curiosity rather than malice, who stumbled into systems that should never have been so poorly protected. They argued that prosecuting him was disproportionate and that the real scandal was the Pentagon's lax cybersecurity. Source: Defense Legal Briefs, 2006-2012. There is disagreement over the actual damage. U.S. estimates ranged from $800,000 to over $1 million, but Jonathan's defense questioned whether those figures included costs that would have been incurred anyway for security upgrades. Source: Defense Motions Disputing Damages, 2005. We still don't know definitively what data Jonathan copied, whether any of it was classified at the highest levels, or whether foreign adversaries exploited the vulnerabilities he exposed before they were patched. Those details remain sealed or classified. Human impact. Hundreds of military personnel and civilian contractors had their login credentials and personal information compromised. Some had to change passwords, undergo security reviews, and answer questions about whether they had been negligent. Source: Interviews with affected personnel in military publications, 2002-2004. For the military IT staff responsible for those systems, Jonathan's intrusion was a humiliation and a wake-up call. The fact that a teenager with no formal training could access critical infrastructure revealed gaps that could have been exploited by adversaries with far more hostile intent. For Jonathan himself, the decade-long extradition battle took a severe psychological toll. He described panic attacks, depression, and constant fear of being sent to a foreign prison. Source: Jonathan interviews with BBC The Guardian, 2009-2013. His mother became a tireless advocate, fearing she would lose her son to suicide or a foreign justice system. Expert lens: Why it matters. Cybersecurity experts describe this case as a textbook example of security through obscurity failing. The Pentagon assumed that because their networks were not widely advertised, they were safe. They relied on weak passwords and outdated software. Source: Analysis by Sands Institute, Symantec researchers, 2002-2003. Think of it like this. The Pentagon built a massive vault, but left the back door unlocked and assumed no one would try the handle. Jonathan tried the handle. His case also highlights the tension between national security and individual rights. When does a vulnerable person's mental health outweigh the demands of justice? When does curiosity cross into crime? These questions don't have universal answers, but they shape how democracies handle cyberspace. Sidebar: Zero-day exploit. A vulnerability unknown to the software maker. Jonathan didn't use these. He used known flaws no one had bothered to fix. This wasn't just about one hacker. It exposed systemic failures in how the U.S. military approached cybersecurity at a time when the internet was rapidly becoming a battlefield. Source: Congressional Hearings on Military Cybersecurity, 2002-2003. In the years that followed, defense spending on cyber infrastructure increased dramatically, and new policies were implemented to harden networks against intrusion. Mini recap. Here's what we know for certain. A British teenager accessed dozens of U.S. military systems, copied data, and caused disruption. He fought extradition for a decade and won on medical grounds. Visual: timeline scrub with chapter dots showing 2001, 2002, 2012. What remains murky is the true extent of the damage, whether foreign actors exploited the same vulnerabilities, and what Jonathan actually found in those classified files. The final chapter of this story isn't about punishment, it's about what changed because of him. What's next? Scenarios. High confidence. Jonathan will continue to live privately in the UK, occasionally giving interviews but largely staying out of the spotlight. He has expressed regret for the disruption he caused and has advocated for better treatment of individuals with autism in the legal system. Source: Jonathan Public Statements, 2013-2020. Medium confidence. The legal and ethical questions raised by his case will continue to influence extradition law, especially regarding vulnerable defendants and the balance between national security and human rights. His case is now cited in legal textbooks and policy debates. Source: Law Review Articles, UK Parliamentary Discussions, 2013, present. Low confidence. Any classified evidence of what Jonathan found, if it was truly anomalous or sensitive, will be declassified or leak. The U.S. government has shown no inclination to revisit the case or release additional details. Outro and CTA. James Jonathan hacked the Pentagon and walked away not because he was untouchable, but because the system that hunted him ultimately decided he was too fragile to break. Whether you see him as a reckless criminal or a scapegoat for institutional failure depends on what you believe justice is supposed to do. Visual: fade to black with final question on screen. If this story fascinated you, watch our next video. The hacker who took down a country's internet in 10 minutes. Another true story of one person exploiting a flaw the experts missed. Source notes and disclaimer. This script is based on publicly available court documents, news reports from BBC, The Guardian, Wired, and official statements from the U.S. Department of Justice, UK Home Office, and Crown Prosecution Service. Interviews with James Jonathan from 2006-2020 were reviewed. Some details of classified damage assessments remain sealed. This case is closed in the UK. No charges were ever filed. U.S. charges remain technically active but unenforceable. All allegations regarding Jonathan's actions are based on indictments and his own admissions. This script does not take a position on guilt or innocence, only on documented facts and claims. Information is current as of available records through 2020. Updates may exist beyond that date. If you enjoyed this video, please like it, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell icon for more amazing videos.